Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys Magic. This is Hunter and Shane. Say what up, Shane.
What up, nerds?
We are back this time taking a look at the bigger budget version of your upgrade to Scrappy Survivors. That's right, it is the new Precon deck from the Fallout series right here in Magic the Gathering. We saw your $100 upgrade. This is a sequel, so if you haven't already seen that video, go ahead and take a look in the description down below where you will find a link. Check that out before you check out this one. And while you're down there, might as well hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already so you can stay up to date with all this other cool stuff we got going on. But before we jump into all these new additions for your $300 upgrade, let's go and remind everybody what your face commander is and what the deck kind of wants to do.
Sounds good. So I'm using Dogmeat, Everloyal. It is a red, a green, and a white for a 3/3 dog. It says whenever Dogmeat enters the battlefield, you're going to mill 5 cards. You're going to return an aura or equipment card from your graveyard to your hand. And then also, whenever a creature you control that is enchanted or equipped attacks, you create a junk token. And then the junk token, for a reminder, is a little artifact that you can sacrifice, exile the top card of your library, and you can play to the end of your turn. Pretty cool ability. Pretty cool. So basically, we're going to be a throw stuff in the graveyard deck, grab it, or not even just throw it in the graveyard, but if it dies, bring it back to your hand. We're going to be equipping all of our things with auras, equipments, and hopefully not just getting destroyed because probably only going to have a couple creatures on the field, Hunter. And people like to kill creatures.
That's true. It sounds like the bestest boy goes and fetches the things you need from the graveyard.
He does. He's the bestest of boys.
All right, so let's not keep the people waiting. Let's go ahead and get into the additions. But first, as a reminder, this is a sequel. Said it before. So everything on the screen right now is things that you are keeping from the $100 upgrade. Isn't that right, Shane?
Yep. I really, really like that. All these ads. I'm taking them from the 100, throwing them into 300. And now I'm going to add more things on top of it.
Okay, so let's kick it off with these $300 upgrades. Looks like we're starting off with some instants.
Yeah. After playtesting this deck a lot, I really need a way to protect the board, like I mentioned in talking about the dog. We're not going to have too many creatures, but the ones that are on the field are very important to keep on the field. The first one I'm throwing in is Chroma's Will. 3 and a white. It's an instant that says you can choose one if you control your commander. As you cast the spell, you can choose both. Creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn, and or creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. So you could use this defensively. Not probably the best way to use it, but it's there if you need it. But this is just going to be a huge finisher for us too. So it's really versatile, and it should hopefully just push for the end of the game. And I just love this card if you're playing in any kind of do damage strategy.
Yeah, it's definitely a finisher for sure. Chroma's Will is always that card you got to be wary of.
And then I also alluded to just kind of protecting the board. So I threw in Deflecting Swat, 2 in a red. It's an instant. If you control your commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost. You may choose your targets for spell or ability. Any kind of card that's trying to kill your stuff, you can just deflect it away. Fantastic card. Just protect whatever's on the board. Protect the guy that has all the pants, meaning he's equipped with some. Just protect everything.
Yeah, swat anything coming at you.
And then the last one, Flawless Maneuver, 2 and a white. If you control your commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost. Creatures you control gain indestructible to end of turn. Once again, once we got our commander out and we're humming, the machine's humming, we don't want to be interrupted. And getting things destroyed is being interrupted. So, fantastic way to just, hopefully for free, protect your stuff.
Yeah, totally understand why all three of these are in here. Great includes. But let's go ahead and move on. Looks like you got some new artifacts, specifically equipments. What are these?
Yeah, I wanted to throw in some more swords and spears. The first one I wanted to throw in, though, is Shadow Spear. For 1 mana, it's a legendary artifact equipment. Equipped a creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and lifelink. You can also pay 1. Permanents your opponents control lose hexproof and indestructible till end of turn with an equip cost of 2. I think this is just a fantastic way to give one of your creatures trample and lifelink. +1/+1 is pretty good too, but for 1 mana, giving something trample and lifelink, you can't go wrong. Plus, the bottom part is just even more awesome abilities where, like, if your opponent tries to protect their stuff, giving it hexproof, indestructible, you're just like, nah, it doesn't have that anymore, dude. It's still gonna die.
Yeah, Shadow Spear is is a really mean card. If someone's trying to protect from a board wipe, you could just say no.
Yeah, and once we get to the cuts later, I'll show you. There was a card in particular that I kind of just swapped out for this. But I think the Shadow Spear is just like a direct upgrade. We'll get to that later. The next sword I wanted to throw in is Sword of the Feast and Famine for 3 mana. It's an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and gains protection from black and from green. It also says whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card and you untap all lands you control. Equip cost of 2. In the 100, I threw in the Sword of Light and Shadow, and I really like that card. I also wanted to throw this one in, but I just didn't have the budget for it. Now I do. The ability to have protection from black and green, really good. Lots of good destroy spells are in black. And then just the ability to untap all of your lands, that's insane. I feel like you're going to swing in and then just be like, all right, what's next? Here we go. Like, it's a fantastic sword.
Yeah, I like both of these equipments. Already getting scared of what you're going to be throwing onto your creatures. Moving on, I am seeing the enchantment department is getting an upgrade as well.
Yes, sir. I think the $300 upgrade for me is all about finishing the game. I mean, the $100, it had a really good way of finishing the game too. But now, we got more of a budget. We're going to start pushing some super mean damage. The first one I'm going to be throwing in for the enchantments is Eldrazi Conscription. It's 8 mana, and it's an enchantment. It's an Eldrazi aura. It says enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +10/+10 and has trample and annihilator 2. Now, okay, 8 mana. I understand that's a lot. But giving the ability to have trample and annihilator 2 on something that has a 10/10 worth of damage is nuts. This is going to be a huge way to just hopefully end the game. If this resolves, your opponents can't let it resolve because I don't know. You're going to be the hugest threat on the board now. And even if this thing dies, the ability of your commander going and grabbing it, getting it again, like this could just be a menace over and over.
If this hits the field, politics are going to come in real quick. People are going to be your friend.
Yes, they don't want to get smacked for 10. The trample on this is very good because otherwise it would just be a big dumb beater. And Annihilator 2, nothing to scoff at. Sacrificing 2 permanents on attacks is really mean. The next one I wanted to add is Hollowed Hunting. For 2 and 2 white, it's an enchantment. As long as you control 7 or more enchantments, creatures you control have flying and vigilance. It also says whenever you cast an enchantment spell, create a white spirit cleric creature token with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of spirits you control. We're going to be casting a lot of enchantments, hopefully. We're going to be creating some spirits. And then when you get that critical mass of 7 or more, giving everything flying and vigilance, kind of good, dude.
Yeah, this still being in standard at the time of recording, this card can be very powerful.
And then the last enchantment that I wanted to throw in this upgrade, Spirit Mantle, 1 and a white for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has protection from creatures. This is just something good to throw on a big dumb beater that then now has protection from creatures, so they can't block it. Like what? Like this is just a really good card, dude.
Yeah, gives your card whatever you throw it on is unblockable. It's get in with that damage. If you're throwing everything on, with including Eldrazi Conscription, onto something that's unblockable, that is gonna hurt.
Yeah, that's gonna put you as the #1 threat. So that's why we're adding in those protection spells, man, because people are not gonna like the creatures you have on the field.
Oh yeah. All right, let's move on. Looks like we're wrapping it up here with your land base. Talk to me about the new lands.
I wanted to make the land base hum a little bit more, Hunter, yeah. So the first one I'm throwing in is All of Heliod's Generosity. The legendary land that taps are colorless. You can also pay for 1 and a white, tap it, put target enchantment card from your graveyard on top of your library. So just in case your commander can't go and get you that enchantment from your graveyard, this can just pay a little bit of mana, tap it, put it back on your library. This gives you access to it again. Really good recursion.
Yeah, it really is. I like this include a lot.
I'm also putting in Jetmir's Garden. It's the Triome. It counts for a mountain, forest, or plain. And it taps for a red, a green, or a white. It comes in tapped and it has cycling 3. Just a really solid land, and I like it. You can fetch for it if you need to, and then it has that cycling 3 on top of. You get this late game, you don't need it. Draw a card. Fantastic land. And then the last 3 lands that I'm adding in are just all of the shocks that we can. So I'm adding in Sacred Foundry, Stomping Ground, and Temple Garden. They all will either enter the battlefield tapped unless you pay 2 life. Sacred Foundry taps for a red and a white, Stomping Ground taps for a red and a green, and Temple Garden taps for a green and a white. It's all fantastic lands, man. I think that we're just trying to make the lands hum a little bit more in these upgrades and adding the bond lands and the shock lands, and that's what more do you need?
Yeah, and we saw these Shocklands being reprinted in the last two Ravnica sets, Ravnica Remastered and the Clue Edition. So they're quite affordable. Go pick them up.
Yeah, very much so, man.
But is that it? Is that going to be all of the additions for your $300 upgrade?
That's my upgrades for the 300, man.
All right, and now the part that is a unfortunate thing that we have to do because this is a very cool series, and taking apart some of these decks is painful. But this is what we do the upgrades. We gotta take some out. So on the screen right now, you'll see all of your cuts from your $100 upgrade. That is staying the same, correct?
Correct. Since we're pulling over the $100 additions, we're also going to be pulling over the $100 cuts.
Okay, and as a reminder, if you wanted to see the reasoning why he's cutting out all of these cards, check the link in the description for that video. But this is the new edition. We got some new ads. We got some new cuts. Talk to me about them.
I think whenever we do these cuts, people always get kind of upset because they just say, "Oh, well, you cut all of the X cards out of the deck," you know. But it's got to happen, man. I don't know. So that being said, the first one I'm cutting is Duchess Wayward Tavern Keep, 3 in a red for a 4/3 human citizen. It says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a quest counter on it. It also has pay 1, remove a quest counter from a permanent you control, create a junk token. This just seemed really slow in my opinion. I cut in the 100 also a card that had to do with quest counters. So I figured that I would just cut the other one that dealt with quest counters. Creating a junk token, that's cool and all. We have way more efficient ways to create junk tokens, and I just didn't like this creature, so I cut it. It's the only creature I'm cutting.
Yeah, it's interesting that junk is in this deck in particular because you want stuff in the graveyard, and if you can't cast the stuff with the junk token, it just disappears forever in exile. So I can see why you're cutting this. What about some other equipment that's being removed? I see some here.
Yeah, I alluded to it when I was talking about the Shadow Spear, but since we are adding in some equipments that I think are better, we're just going to make room for it and cut a couple equipments. First being Behemoth Sledge for 1, a green, and a white. It's an equipment. Equip creature gets +2/+2 and has trample and lifelink. Equip cost of 3. This is the card that I directly was upgrading with Shadow Spear. It's a little better. You get the +2/+2. It's just so much more mana intensive for the same ability. Shadow Spear also gives you that extra utility of giving something that had indestructible or hexproof, not that. So I felt like this was an easy one for one cut. I'm also cutting Bloodforged Battle Axe, 1 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of Bloodforged Battle Axe. Equip cost of 2. This is a cool little card, and if you want to keep it in the deck, I would keep it in the deck. But the fact that when you do create it, you have to then invest the mana again to equip it to something. I kind of would rather just use that mana and casting another good thing from my hand. So that's why I'm cutting it. I do understand though, like this can keep making you those axes. So if you did like this card, hey, feel free to keep it in the deck. Explorer's Scope for 1 mana. It's an equipment. Whenever a cryptic creature attacks, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. Equip cost of 1. Pretty powerful ability. You can kind of look through and hopefully you see a land, but from playing this a lot, I feel like I never saw land on this dang thing. So I was just like, you know what? I don't need it. There are so many more efficient ways to be getting lands. Like from the 100, we added a couple equipment that I went and actually searched for lands. It wasn't kind of like I hope I got a land kind of thing. So I just cut this out of the deck. And then the last equipment that I'm cutting in this group, it is the Pip-Boy 3000. Please don't hate me. For 1 generic mana, it's an equipment. Whenever equipped creature attacks, choose 1. You can either draw a card and discard a card, put a 1/1 counter on that creature, or untap up to 2 target lands with an equip cost of 2. I think this card has some decent utility. I just didn't think it was as strong as I needed it to be with all the other additions that I'm adding in the deck. At that point, I just decided to cut it. I do understand that this is the Fallout Precon decks, and I completely understand if you do not want to cut the Pip-Boy out of the Fallout deck. So please, this is just the way I wanted to do my cuts and ads. So if you like this card, just keep it, man. Yeah, just keep it.
Yeah, I totally understand why you cut these. Sometimes you just got to cut the cards that don't make a lot of sense in the deck. Even though you are an Equipment and Aurora Matters deck, sometimes the equipment is just not good enough. And you've already upgraded it, so these are getting cut. But I did mention Equipment Aura deck. I am seeing some other auras being removed. Which ones are these?
The first enchantment that I'm going to be cutting in this aura group is almost perfect. It's 4 a green and a white for aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has base power and toughness 9-10 and has indestructible. Now that's a big butt, and that's a big power, and you also get indestructible, but the fact is, it could still just be a big dumb beater. Whereas what I'm adding with Eldrazi Conscription, giving that added trample and all the abilities, like that's, I kind of was just thinking that as like a 1-for-1 switch in my mind. That's why I cut this card. I didn't want to have too many things that were just like ungodly big. So I did a
Yeah,
1-for-1 swap there.
the flavor here is also really cool. Having something you're almost perfect being 9 out of 10. That's
Yeah.
pretty funny.
Yeah. Very
But
close.
I can see why you cut this.
And then the last enchantment that I'm cutting, Acquired Mutation. It is 1 and a red for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and is goaded. It also says whenever enchanted creature attacks, defending player gets 2 rad counters. This is kind of cute. It's kind of the whole goad strategy. I'm going to be casting it on one of my opponents. I mean, I guess I could attach it to mine as well, but I kind of like the idea of giving it to an opponent. But I think that what I'm adding in and what's already in the deck again is just a little bit stronger than this card. And then if I'm not putting it on my creatures, am I getting the full benefit from it because it's goaded? So I just cut it. I didn't think it was as strong as it needs to be.
Yeah, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. This is one that's not applicable to this deck. Rounding out, I do remember we switched some lands. So what lands are we taking out?
Out of the boxes, this deck had 38 lands. So in my $300 edition, I added those 5. I'm actually going to be cutting 6 here. So we're going to be going down 1 land to 37. And that's perfectly in line with what I think is going to be okay for the deck. So the first land I'm cutting is Ash Barrens. It's a land. It taps for a colorless. And it's got basic land cycling for 1. It's just kind of a meh card, in my opinion. I'm also cutting Evolving Wilds. It's a land. You can tap it, sacrifice Evolving Wilds, search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. It's just a slow fetch. It's, again, a mad land in my opinion. I'm cutting Junktown. It's a land that taps for colorless. You can also pay 4 and a red, tap this, sacrifice Junktown, create 3 junk tokens. Like you already kind of said earlier, not too big on the junk tokens in this deck, and that this is just this pay for 5, blow up your land and make 3. I didn't really like this card at all, so I cut it. Another land that I'm going to be cutting is Scattered Groves. It is a forest plain. It enters the battlefield tapped always, and it has cycling for 2. So you can pay 2, discard this, draw a card. Again, I don't like cards that come in tapped, man. So we're adding in all those shocks in replace of these slow tapped lands. The next one is Sheltered Thicket. Once again, it's a mountain and a forest. It enters the battlefield tapped always, and it has cycling 2 as well. And then the last land is Terramorphic Expanse. It's just like Evolving Wilds. You can tap it, sacrifice it, search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Just very slow fetches. We don't need them. I got rid of them.
Yeah, I totally understand why you got rid of those cards. We are in a higher budget upgrade, and one of the main things you need to do when you're upgrading is to make your lands faster. So these are slow. I get it. But is that it? Is that going to be your entire upgrade?
That's it, man. Those are my ads and my cuts.
All right, Scrappy Survivors, you're getting scrappy. But let's go ahead and ask the question. We gave you $300 to upgrade this deck. What was the total amount of money you spent on all of your additions?
At the time of recording, Hunter, you can pick up all the additions from the 100 and the 300 now for $290.
Wow, coming under budget. I like it.
Yes, sir.
All right, but that is going to do it for us. If you guys wanted to see this entire deck list, check the description. You will find a link to the Moxfield account. But before we wrap up, Shane, do you have any final thoughts on the deck itself?
I think the ever loyal good Doge is a good Doge. I'm actually very excited to play these games with you guys. I think it's going to be really fun. You're going to be just putting the pants on some creatures, and then if they die, you can get them back. Like, I think it's got great recursion. I'm genuinely excited to play this deck, man.
Yeah, seems very spicy, and I'm kind of afraid to play against it. It's going to be a good one. But that is going to do it for us today. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already so you're staying up to date with everything else that we got going on. Also in the description, you will find links to our Instagram, our TikTok, and our Twitter. That's at Guys at Magic for each. Follow us on those as well. On the screen right now, those are all of our Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys so much for your added support. It means the world to us. If you guys wanted to see what they are seeing that is not here on YouTube, check the description for our Patreon account and consider subscribing. Also, leave a comment down below. Do you agree with these ads? Do you disagree with them? Maybe you would have taken this deck in a different direction. We're always interested in what you have to say, so comment down below. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Bye bye.